The hero party has just sealed the demon lord away, and while this is a huge win, they know that as long as he isn't defeated for good, the world will always be in danger. Everyone feels guilty that they couldn't finish the job, but their leader tries to give them hope, telling them that one day a new hero will rise up and finish what they started. Years pass, and now Thunder Pike, an A-rank party, is on a public dungeon raid. They're in the middle of the mission, but the thought of the demon lord and the promise of a future hero still hangs over them, reminding them that their work is far from over. The people might have peace for now, but the threat is never truly gone. While the two melee fighters attack, the magic users begin casting their spells, and thanks to the buffs from the party's supporter, Yuka, they are able to take a Hydra down in record time. Individually, the members of Thunder Pike are already really strong, but when they work together, they are nearly unbeatable, which is part of the reason why they have so many fans. The Thunder Pike party might seem like a strong and united team to outsiders, but the truth is, they don't get along as well as people think. After their latest dungeon raid stream ends, Yuka, the red mage of the group, tells the team that he's done with them and is quitting Thunder Pike immediately. Simone, the party leader, is shocked and asks him why he wants to leave. Yuka explains that it's because he's not getting paid fairly. The small amount of money he got today isn't enough to live on, and if this keeps up, he'll have to take out loans just to get by, which he refuses to do. Simone argues that Yuka isn't earning more because he doesn't contribute enough to the team. Barry, another member of the group, adds fuel to the fire by saying that Yuka doesn't even fight in battles and just wastes their equipment with his enchantments. Yuka is shocked and upset to hear Barry call his enchantments useless, but he quickly realizes that Barry isn't the only one who feels this way. The only one who actually thinks Yuka is useful is Jamie, but that's just because he's good at setting up their streams. Kanala tells him that if he wants to be paid more, then he has to be more active as a member of the team. But Yuka doesn't think she has the right to say that since she's basically a healer and Yuka is always protecting her in battle. The fact that they don't value the work he does is exactly why he wants to quit the party. Simone asks him if he's really sure he can manage on his own if he leaves. He says the only reason Yuka is even B rank is because they are childhood friends, and Simone did him a favor by letting him join Thunder Pike. And even if he leaves, they'll be just fine without him. Since they clearly don't think Yuka deserves to be paid well, Yuka definitely isn't going to stick around. Yuka has wasted the last 5 years of his life supporting this party, and they would never have gotten this far without his help. But the others still all think he's useless, so they won't miss him at all. Now that Yuka has officially quit Thunder Pike, he heads to the guild receptionist to ask if there's any work available. She's surprised that a famous adventurer like him is looking for a gig, so she asks him if something happened with Thunder Pike. Yuka explains that he quit. The receptionist doesn't seem that surprised since things like this happen all the time, so she hands Yuka a form to fill out so she can give him a new party. Once he's done filling out the form, he hands it to the receptionist, but just then, a girl comes running up to him for a big hug. The girl's name is Marina, and she used to be one of Yuka's students back when he taught preliminary adventure classes half a year ago. Yuka is glad she's doing all right. She's curious about why Yuka is here, so she asks him, and he tells her that he's currently looking for a new party since he recently left Thunder Pike. Marina doesn't even let him finish his sentence because if he's looking for a new party, then she would love to have her beloved teacher join hers. Yuka says yes to Marina's offer, and soon he's sitting with her and the rest of her team. Silk is really excited to have Yuka on board, but she's also a little surprised. Yuka is a really strong adventurer, like B rank strong. He could easily join a much better team, but he's totally cool with being in their D rank group. In fact, he actually likes it better this way. Back when he was in his old team in Thunder Pike, they always went on super tough missions. To get ready, Yuka had to buy a bunch of expensive magic stuff, which left him broke all the time. That's why he wants to take it easy for a while and just deal with some low-level quests instead. Since Marina, Silk, and Rayan are all on board with the idea, Yuka officially joins their party. Their first mission together is to collect magic iron ore from the Painta mine dungeon. It's been a long time since Yuka felt excited to go on a mission like this, and it definitely brings back a lot of old memories from when he was starting out as an adventurer. Yuka recalls that this dungeon has a lot of magic ore veins on the 6th floor, and Silk tells him he is correct, but they were hoping to avoid fighting the 5th floor boss. So Yuka suggests they should start on the 4th floor instead. As they enter the dungeon, Marina takes the lead and uses a stick to check for any traps that may have been set, and Yuka is so proud because she's doing it exactly how he taught her. but for now he asks her to let him take the lead since he has a more efficient method. Marina doesn't understand what he means since their party doesn't have a scout or thief to detect the traps. But while that may be true, Yuka has a magic item that should be useful in this situation. It's a detection lamp, and thanks to a special type of oil, it illuminates traps so they can spot them just like a scout would. The lamp really is useful, but Silk asks if it's okay for Yuka to be using it since special oil sounds really expensive. And yes, it normally is, but Yuka made this oil with his alchemy, so it didn't cost him much. The party continues walking down the corridor while carefully avoiding all the traps until eventually, Yuka stops everyone because he can sense something up ahead. Yuka warns everyone to get ready for a fight. They all burst into the room and find themselves facing a bunch of ugly, grumpy-looking creatures called boggles. Silk doesn't hesitate, she shoots the first one right away. Marina jumps in and starts swinging her hammer, and Yuka secretly helps her by making her stronger and faster with some magic. He also trips up the boggles so they stumble around. While they're all confused, Marina swings her hammer and chops both of the remaining boggles in half. Even Marina is shocked at how easily she did that. She turns to Yuka and asks if that awesome feeling she just had was because of his magic. Yuka smiles and says yes. He used 3 different kinds of magic to make her super powerful. Rain can't believe it. Yuka used 3 spells at the same time without even saying any magic words. But Yuka doesn't think it was all that impressive, so he just says they should keep moving. As they continue through the mine, he asks the girls about their usual dungeon exploration routine. Marina proudly explained that they always take a break after each floor and check their equipment, just like he taught them to do. Since that's the case, Yuka suggests that they should rest a bit before they continue. After their break, Marina and the others check all their equipment for damage, and everything seems to be in working order. So they are ready to continue their mission and head down to the next floor. On the second floor of the dungeon, the group is suddenly ambushed by a group of undead miners, and the only way to get rid of them is for Rain to use holy magic. So everyone needs to protect her while she uses her chant. Marina and Silk plan to handle the defense, but Yuka tells them he has this covered, so he casts a blessing of light on all of them, and while it won't kill the undead miners, it does stop them from coming closer, so it's a good defensive measure. Eventually, Rain finishes the holy light spell and uses it to eradicate the undead. Once they are safe, Marina begins praising Rain for a job well done. Yuka praises her as well, since there aren't many people who can use light magic on the scale that Rain just did. But doing that probably drained a ton of her mana, so he casts Refresh Mana to help her recover. Rain can't believe Yuka can use Refresh Mana, since that's a really rare skill. It completely restores the mana of whomever it's cast on, and having that skill alone would make Yuka insanely valuable to any party that works with him. But Yuka thinks she's exaggerating a little because he only learned Refresh Mana as a way to compensate for having an obscure job like a red mage. Although it was really difficult for him to learn it, afterwards, the group continues walking down the path, and as they go, Yuka begins pouring a liquid on the ground. Silk asks him what he's doing, so Yuka explains that he is pouring holy water over their footprints in order to stop undead monsters from following them. Silk is worried and asks if it's really okay for him to waste his holy water like that, since it's really expensive. But Yuka tells her it's fine, since once again, he made this himself. The group is in shock that Yuka is able to make holy water even though he isn't a priest, but he has a special method for it. By purifying the ashes left behind by the undead when they are defeated, Yuka is able to process it into holy water. The ashes he got from the undead miners will be more than enough to make up for the amount of holy water he's using. By the time they finally make it to the 3rd floor, Yuka suggests that they should take another break since they'll begin mining from this point forward. And since they haven't eaten for a while, he whips out some cooking utensils from his magic bag and says he will make them a meal. Magic bags aren't that rare, but this is Rain's first time seeing a magic bag in person, so she's really excited. Yuka starts cooking breakfast, sausage and eggs. While he's cooking, he pulls out a strange pot. The girls watch in amazement as Yuka taps the pot, and it magically fills itself with a delicious-looking soup. Yuka explains that it's a special pot he found in an ancient palace. It makes different kinds of soup every time you use it, which is super helpful when you're on a dungeon adventure. The girls are really happy because they haven't had a good meal like this in a long time. Silk notices something strange though. The food seems to have magic in it. She asks Yuka about it, and he says he doesn't know why. He just cooked it with a lot of love, but maybe his magic accidentally made the food special. Finally, they reach the 4th floor of the dungeon and find a giant lizard made of rock blocking their way. But as the monster charges at them, Yuka casts a slow spell on it so it practically freezes in place. Marina then rushes forward to attack, and normally she wouldn't risk it. But since Yuka's enchantments have buffed her strength and stamina, she decides to try using her magic blade ability. With it, she's able to slice the rock lizard's head off in one go. Once the fight is over, Marina is totally exhausted since Magic Blade uses up a ton of her mana. Yuka tells Marina to keep using her new strength as much as possible, even if she feels a little weird. He then uses his magic to help her regain her energy. Since they found a lot of special rocks called magic ores on this floor, Yuka and the girls start mining them. After a while, they collected a huge pile of ores. Yuka asks if they have enough for their quest, and Silk says they need a few more. Unfortunately, there are no more ores on this floor. The only way to get more is to defeat the boss on the next floor and go down to the floor below that. The girls aren't happy about this because the boss on the next floor is called the Novice Crusher Steel Crab, and they're worried they might not be strong enough to beat it. But Yuka tells them they don't need to worry since he will do his best to handle the boss on his own. A little while later, they arrive at the boss's room, but before they head in, Yuka pulls out a camera artifact. Rain recognizes the artifact and asks if Yuka plans to live stream his battle, but he was actually just going to record instead. He always records his battles so he can study his mistakes later. If he's going to be recording anyway, Marina asks him to make it a live stream since she thinks it will be a lot of fun. Yuka is fine with live streaming his fight, but while he's setting it up, he realizes he doesn't know the name of this party. He asks them, but Silk tells him they haven't actually thought of party name yet. In fact, they aren't even officially registered yet. Since that's the case, he asks them if they have any good ideas for a team name. Marina thinks for a second and comes up with the name Clover, specifically a 4-leaf clover to represent their 4 members. Everyone really likes the name, so from now on they shall be known as Clover. Just then, Yuka realizes that this is going to be their party's first live stream, and he'd feel bad if he was the only one who got the spotlight. So he asks the others if they want to help him fight the boss, but they all tell him that it's fine for him to handle it solo. In that case, Yuka isn't going to hold back. So he casts Great Blink Shadow and Protector Shield buffs on himself and then enters the boss room. The Steel Crab awakens and immediately tries to strike Yuka, but he uses his speed buffs to dodge. Once he's out of the crab's range, he begins casting tons of debuff spells on it. Once the crab is sufficiently weakened, he casts a gravity spell to crush it against the floor. With this, the Steel Crab boss has been defeated, and it didn't even take him 1 minute to do it. So Yuka is pleased with his performance. He then ends the stream, and Marina runs up to hug him for being so amazing, but she's hugging him a little too hard. So the others ask her to let go before Yuka ends up in a wheelchair. After making sure his back is fine, Yuka tells everyone that they should bring the Steel Crab's body back to the guild so they can sell the parts. He stores the entire thing in his magic bag, and that's a huge help since they never would have been able to carry it back by themselves. So far, Yuka has been indispensable to their party, but Silk doesn't think it's fair for them to constantly be relying on Yuka like this. So Yuka suggests that next time they have a boss battle, everyone can participate so they'll gain some experience. The girls like the sound of that, but for now, they still have to open the treasure chest they get for killing the floor boss. When they do, they find a ton of magic ores, so it looks like they won't have to mine anymore after all. Dungeon streams are really popular all around the world, as they are a great source of publicity. Big companies often offer sponsorship deals to popular streamers, and right now, Yuka's popularity is at an all-time high because the video of him defeating the Steel Crab with nothing but status effect spells has gone viral. Meanwhile, Yuka and the others are returning home, and while on the carriage, Yuka asks them what they thought of their first mission together. The girls absolutely loved it. They learned all sorts of cool things from Yuka, so this was easily the best mission they've completed so far. In fact, they were all thinking of making Yuka the official leader of their party since he has the most experience and they all trust him with their lives. Yuka hesitated. He'd been their teacher, not their leader. He never meant to take over Marina's party. But they were so insistent, so eager for his guidance. He finally agreed, mostly because he wanted to make sure they stayed safe. He couldn't let them get hurt. Meanwhile, back in Thunderpike, things weren't going well. Simon had hired a replacement for Yuka after he quit, but he clearly didn't understand how much Yuka had been carrying the team. The new guy was struggling, and the party was starting to flounder. The new guy led them right into wolf territory and expected everything to just work out. Normally, Yuka would have cast a weakening spell on the wolves by now, but the new guy can't do that, so the wolves are way too strong for the party to handle. As a result, Janie gets chonked. Simon sees her in trouble and rushes to save her by decapitating the wolf. While Jamie is technically safe now, her stomach is full of holes, so she'll die if she doesn't get help soon. Simon asks Camila to cast a healing spell on Jamie, but Camila says she's out of mana, so there's nothing she can do. It's not like they had a guide who could cast a mana restoration spell, did they? The group retreats to safety, and Simon administers first aid to try and keep Jamie alive while Camila's mana recharges. He asks if anyone has a healing potion, and the new guy, Cork, has one. But he doesn't feel like giving it to Simon since Simon made it painfully clear that he was responsible for buying his own equipment with his own money. Simon tells him that now is not the time to be worrying about money when one of his teammates is about to die. So Cork reluctantly hands over the healing potion and Simon feeds it to Jamie. Thunderpike has really been on a downward spiral lately, but on the flip side, everything has been working out for Yuka. He and the girls are sitting at the bar to celebrate. And while the reward for their quest wasn't that high, the steel crab's body was in good condition, so the guild paid a good price for it. Speaking of money, Yuka asks Marina and the others what system they've been using to split up the party's earnings. They tell him that Silk usually handles all the party's money, and each member gets a set allowance. Yuka is a little surprised since it's rare for a party to entrust all the money to a single member, but the group has a reason for that. They've all been saving up so they can eventually afford to buy a house as a party since it's a little awkward to have to be renting at the inn all the time. Since they are trying to save their money, Yuka tells them it's fine if they continue with the allowance system. Silk asks if he is really okay with her handling all the finances since she thought an adventurer like him would want to handle his own money. But Yuka trusts her, so there's no reason to change the system they already have. While Yuka and the others are having fun and getting along, Simon and the rest of Thunderpike are upset because that was the worst outcome they've had in years. Thankfully, they were able to save Janie's life, but things could have gone really badly. Simon blames it all on Cork. The rest of the party gets in on it and starts calling Cork useless for not being able to get them out of that mess. But Cork isn't going to let them put the blame on him since everyone knows that dire wolves track their prey through scent. So it's common sense to buy a scent blocker in preparation for the mission. This is clearly the party's fault for not being prepared for the situation. But Simon tries to turn it around on Cork and says that if he knew about the scent blockers, then he should have told them. The fact that Jamie almost died is entirely his fault too because he didn't buy scent blockers for the entire party. The gaslighting is strong with this one, but thankfully it's not strong enough to fool Cork. So he realizes he wants no part in a party where no one is willing to take accountability for their mistakes and quits on the spot. Yuka overhears this, and he can't believe Thunderpike still hasn't learned from their mistakes, but that doesn't concern him anymore. He turns back to the girls, and Marina tells everyone what they should do for tomorrow. Silk remembers something Yuka once told her about it being important to take a day off after every mission, so she suggests that they do that. Everyone agrees that Yuka should lead the party. Since he has the day off, Yuka decides to go shopping. He needs to buy more healing potions and magic scrolls, and he also needs to make some holy water. He's going to be busy for a while, so he tells everyone to meet back there later. Suddenly, Arena notices that their dungeon adventure is being shown on a popular website. Yuka's fight with the steel crab is the #1 video. He's surprised because he only posted it a few hours ago, and it already has thousands of views. People are amazed that a red mage, which is a pretty rare job, was able to defeat the steel crab without even touching it. The announcers tell everyone to keep an eye on Yuka and his party, Clover, because they just might become the world's greatest party. Simon and the other members of Thunderpike see Yuka's stream as well, and they are all incredibly jealous that Yuka is actually doing well without them. But they still refuse to admit that Yuka might have been more useful to them than they gave him credit for. Thunderpike is always going to be a bunch of haters, but it looks like there is actually someone else hating on Yuka from a distance. And he seems mad that Yuka is getting comfortable with his new party. A couple of days later, Yuka is back in the guild, and he's looking at the notice board to see if he can find any quests that will be good for the girls. The receptionist sees him struggling to decide, so she comes over and asks if she can help. Yuka asks her if there are any quests that are easy enough for a party of noobs, but also paying a decent amount of money. The receptionist tells him that he is being a little too optimistic here. He's never going to find such a perfect quest. But given the circumstances, she points to a C-rank quest that involves fetching some magic stones from the Orden Forest. Yuka thinks this just might work, but he's a little curious as to why the quest is C-rank when fetching magic stones will usually only be D-rank. The receptionist explains that there has been a large magical beast sighted near the forest, so this quest is slightly more dangerous than normal. Marina bursts into the guild and immediately yells that they'll take the quest before Yuka can even finish explaining it. Yuka tries to stop her, but Marina says she trusts him. If he thinks they can handle it, then they can. Besides, they've been to that forest before, so it shouldn't be too hard, right? She's confused though because all the other quests are easy, but this one is much harder. That's when Yuka explains that there's a dangerous magic beast living in the forest now, which is why the quest is so difficult. Hearing that there's a magical beast in the forest makes the girls reconsider whether it's a good idea to take that quest after all. But they ultimately decide to just go with it anyway, since if Yuka is with them, then they are sure everything will work out in the end. In that case, Yuka tells them all to get their items ready and to meet him an hour later in front of the stagecoach so they can head to the forest. Just then, the receptionist returns with the quest receipt, and all this seems a little too convenient. So he asks the receptionist if she planned things so they would end up like this, and she doesn't deny having some part in this. The stream Yuka made yesterday ended up earning him more than 10,000 fans, and they are all eager to see Yuka's next stream. Yuka is a little embarrassed since he hadn't realized his stream would earn him so much attention. He sees no harm in continuing to stream his fights since he'll bring attention to the girls, and if they happen to find that magical beast, having it on video would be great for the guild's records. While Yuka was talking about all this, the man from before is getting more and more infuriated. So, as Yuka leaves the guild, he follows him. Yuka immediately realizes that he's being followed since the guy doing it is doing a terrible job at it. So he ducks into an alleyway to get away. He was hoping to lose his stalker, but for a fat guy, he's pretty quick and catches up to Yuka. Yuka asks him if he has any business with him, so the man demands that Yuka quit Clover immediately. Yuka obviously says that's not going to happen, especially since he's the leader of the party. The guy can't believe those girls would make Yuka their leader after just one day together, even though he offered to join their party a million times, and they kept turning him down. Yuka understands what's going on here. This guy wanted to get himself a harem of cute adventurer girls, but Marina and the others refused to let him join. Now seeing another guy live his dream has made him irrational. The man draws his sword to attack if Yuka doesn't agree to leave the girls' party. So Yuka quietly casts a snare trap on the man's feet and then turns to walk away. As Yuka is walking away, the man really does try to attack him, but Yuka's trap causes him to slip and fall on the ground. Once he's on the carriage, he talks to the girls about his random encounter. They recognize the guy as Bijou and tell Yuka that the guy has been trying to join their party for so long. They ask if Yuka is alright since they would hate it if something bad were to happen to him because of them, but Yuka assures them it is not their fault. Besides, he left that guy unconscious in the middle of the street, so they can just report him when they get back to town. In the meantime, before they get to their destination, Yuka wants to go over their mission objective one last time. The quest is to find 3 special magic stones hidden in the Orden Forest. Since the others have been to that forest before, Yuka asks them what it was like. Marina remembers going there 2 months ago, but she says it was surprisingly easy. They didn't even see any monsters. Yuka realizes that this means the dangerous creature might have been in the forest for a while. He decides to livestream their adventure. That way, if they encounter the beast, everyone at the guild will know what it's like. And if they get into trouble, it will be easy to ask for help. Once they arrive in the forest, Yuka begins the stream, and the group starts making their way through the forest. Yuka decides to be the rear guard since beasts usually attack from behind, but Marina asks if it's really alright for him to be at the rear since he's in the most danger there. Yuka tells her she doesn't need to worry since not only can he use Blink Step to get away if his life really is in danger, his clothes also have really good defense stats, so he can take a couple of hits before he goes down. They soon reach the waterfall where they are meant to gather the magic stones, but just before they can reach there, Yuka tells everyone to wait because he can sense something coming. The magic beast finally reveals itself, but all the confidence Yuka had earlier goes out the window because that thing is a high-level monster that's usually only found in the deepest parts of the dungeon. It's Zarnak. The girls are nowhere near strong enough to handle this thing or even survive a minute against it. So Yuka gets in front of them and tells Silk to lead the others back to the Adventurers Guild and get back up while he holds this thing off here. However, the girls know that Yuka doesn't stand a chance against that thing either if he is fighting solo, so they refuse to leave his side. Yuka knows Marina's right. He can't really argue, so he agrees to let them fight alongside him. He uses his magic to make them stronger and faster. Yuka and Marina are the first to charge. Marina rushes forward, but the Zarnak, a giant lizard-like monster, easily knocks her back. Yuka tries to weaken the Zarnak with his magic, but it doesn't seem to be very effective. He's running out of options, so he decides to use a very powerful but risky spell. He needs Marina to distract the Zarnak while he casts it. Marina agrees and bravely faces the monster, doing her best to keep its attention while dodging its attacks. Even when she's about to get caught, Silk and Rain assist with their magic. Thanks to their combined efforts, Yuka has enough time to finish casting the level 5 spell, a highly destructive prismatic missile. Now that it's complete, Yuka fires it straight at the beast's face. The prismatic missile explodes, and at first it doesn't seem to do much. But then, the monster starts coughing up blood. Rain casts a powerful lightning spell, and the monster is paralyzed. Yuka yells at Marina to attack, and he uses his magic to make her attack even stronger. Marina charges forward and swings her sword with all her might, and in one amazing move, she cuts off the monster's head. Yuka falls to his knees, relieved they won. Back in town, everyone watching the stream is shocked. They'd never seen such a powerful spell before. But of course, there's always someone who has to be negative. Back in the forest, Yuka is a little dizzy from using so much magic. But he's okay. He's glad everything worked out, but that fight was way too tough for a group of newbies like them. And the only reason they managed to make it out alive was because they got lucky. He tells the girls that he's going to scold them later because of their reckless behavior, but the girls think Yuka is just as reckless as they were because he initially ran into battle alone, totally expecting to get himself killed, and that's unacceptable behavior. Yuka can't deny that he was prepared to sacrifice himself, so he compromises and says they can all talk about their grievances later. For now, they should probably wash themselves off since they are all covered in sweat, and Marina is covered in Zarnak's blood. While the girls bathe in the river, Yuka starts setting up camp, and this whole thing brings back fond memories from 6 months ago. Back then, Yuka was in charge of training Marina's team, and he was impressed with how well the girls were adjusting to the job of adventuring. However, there were a few areas they could improve in. Marina was a little clumsy, Silk was overly cautious, and Rain was really timid. Even though they almost died, Yuka was so impressed with how well they fought that he wanted to give them their official adventurer licenses right there. Later that night, the girls set up their tent, gathered firewood, and even set up traps to warn them if any monsters came near. As Yuka watched them work, he felt really proud. He knew they would become amazing adventurers someday, but he never thought he would actually join their team. A few days later, they're back at the guild, and it looks like the guild master wants to talk to them. The girls are a little scared. They ask Yuka if this means they are in some kind of trouble, but he thinks this meeting is probably about the Zarnak they defeated. A mission like that should have been classified as B rank. The quest should have been harder, maybe even C rank. Someone needs to look into why it was marked as easy. Suddenly, the guild master of Benwood walks in. The girls are so nervous they stand up straight. He looks at Yuka and demands to know what happened. Yuka tells him he already wrote a report, but the guild master wants more details. Yuka tells the guild master to stop being so scary because he's making the girls nervous. Marina tries to stop Yuka from talking to the guild master, so casually since he is a really powerful person. But the guild master actually respects Yuka a lot, so there's no need for formalities between them. Benwood tells everyone they can sit down. Benwood already knows what happened in the forest, but he wants to know what Yuka thinks about the whole situation. Yuka tells him that he suspects this might have been the result of an overflow, causing a monster several levels stronger than usual to appear. Benwood agrees with Yuka's conclusion and immediately has his secretary issue an emergency investigation quest to get to the bottom of it. Both Yuka and Benwood seem to understand how serious overflows can be, but Marina has no idea what that is, so she asks Yuka for an explanation. Yuka tells her that an overflow is a phenomenon that occurs when a catalyst causes monsters in the dungeon to spill out. Usually, the monsters in the dungeon are trapped there by the magic in the ground, but sometimes they can break free and escape. This could mean that a lot of monsters might soon escape the dungeon all at once, which is called a stampede. Dungeon stampedes are really dangerous and can destroy entire towns. If strong monsters like the one they fought are already escaping, they don't have much time. Benwood says he's going to investigate and make sure everyone is safe. He also apologizes to the girls for putting them in danger. The girls tell him it's okay because they survived, but they also say they wouldn't have made it if Yuka wasn't with them. That said, even though Yuka did most of the heavy lifting, their live stream proved that the girls are capable fighters. So as a reward for doing so well against the Zarnak, Benwood intends to promote all of them to C rank. Although the promotion depends on the girls having Yuka's assistance since he is A rank. Yuka doesn't know what Benwood is talking about since he is only B rank, but that's when Benwood informs him that he is getting a promotion as well. Everyone who watched the livestream saw the high-level prismatic missile spell used on the Zarnak, so it is abundantly clear that Yuka deserves a promotion, and starting today, he will now be an A-rank adventurer. Afterward, Yuka and the girls head downstairs to have a drink and congratulate each other on their promotions. While they are all together, Yuka pulls out the bag of coins he got as the reward for their quest and gives it to Silk to count. Silk opens the bag, and she is shocked because she has never seen so many gold coins in one place before. Yuka explains that even though the quest was originally D-ranked, because of the difficulty, it ended up being treated as a B-ranked quest, so the payout is a lot higher than it would have been otherwise. Silk puts all the coins on the table so she can start counting. But then she notices a piece of paper at the bottom of the bag, and it has Yuka's name on it, so she gives it to him. Yuka opens it, and it turns out to be a note from Benwood apologizing for everything Yuka had to go through. There's also a platinum coin in there as a little bonus for Yuka. Platinum coins are really valuable, so Yuka adds it to the party's funds. Silk finishes counting all the money they earned, and she announces that they have enough to buy a house. Marina is so excited that she jumps up and knocks over all the coins. Silk is happy too, but she feels a little bad because they only earned so much money because of Yuka. Yuka tells Silk not to worry about it. He's the leader of their group, and leaders are supposed to help their team. Even though he helped them earn a lot of money, it's still all of their money. The group continues to celebrate late into the night, and at one point, Rain asks Yuka if he has a dream he wants to accomplish. Yuka is caught off guard by the question, so he asks if there's a specific reason she's asking. Rain explains that they've just reached their goal of purchasing a house thanks to Yuka, so she wants to know what Yuka's dream is so they can help him achieve it. Since she asks, Yuka tells her that his dream is to conquer the deepest floors of the achromatic darkness dungeon. As soon as the girls hear this, they spit up their drinks in surprise because the dungeon is quite literally the most dangerous one out there. It even possesses an abyss gate, an artifact known to be a direct gateway to the underworld. Yuka says the abyss gate is precisely why he wants to conquer the achromatic darkness, so Rain asks him if he intends to go through the abyss gate if he reaches it. However, Yuka explains that he just wants to see what the edge of the world looks like. Yuka tells the girls that his uncle once tried to reach the gate of the dungeon, but he couldn't do it. Yuka used to tell that story all the time when he was a kid, and now he really wants to try it himself, even though he knows it's probably impossible. Marina thinks it's a cool goal, so she suggests that they all go to the achromatic darkness together and try to reach the gate, just like Yuka always dreamed of. Yuka tells her it's not that simple since that dungeon is so dangerous that just entering it requires permission from the government, and you'd have to be an A-rank party to gain approval. Even so, Rain still thinks it'd be a good idea, so she says she wants it to be their party's next goal. All the others agree and promise to work hard to make Yuka's dream a reality, but they won't be attempting it anytime soon though. With each passing day, Clover's streams have been gaining more and more popularity. Right now, they are streaming a battle against an undead hand, and thanks to their flawless teamwork, they are able to take it down with a lightning spell from Rain and a rock scroll from Yuka. That concludes the stream, so they wave to their fans, and everyone at the guild absolutely loves them except the members of Thunderpike, who hate how popular Yuka has become. Barry thinks Yuka only looks impressive because he is in a team of newbies, but Simon actually heard that Yuka recently got promoted to A rank, so he might just be that good. Besides, Yuka's popularity isn't their biggest concern right now. Thunderpike has been constantly failing quests recently, and Simon thinks it's because all the new people they hire end up being useless morons. In fact, none of them ever end up sticking around for more than one day. But that can't be because there's something wrong with their team, right? Speaking of their team, Simon asks why Janie isn't here, so Candela explains that Janie wasn't in the mood for a drink. Simon gets pissed since, after that mission where Janie got mauled by a wolf, she's been slowing the team down constantly. As for Janie herself, she has locked herself in her room and has been watching videos of Yuka's live stream on repeat for hours now. The other members of Thunderpike are starting to realize that Yuka may have been more useful than they gave him credit for. So since the reason Yuka quit in the first place was because of his low pay, they could just increase his cut a little. And since Jamie hasn't been doing much lately, they can cut her pay instead. A few hours later, Yuka and the others return to the guild to report the success of their mission. But as they arrive at the front door, they find Simon waiting there for Yuka. Seeing Simon again makes Yuka a little angry, so he tells the girls to head inside without him, and then he asks Simon what he wants. Simon gets to the point and says he is allowing Yuka the honor of rejoining Thunderpike. Yuka can't believe that just came out of Simon's mouth, but Simon tries to manipulate Yuka into considering it by reminding him that his dream to see the Abyss Gate can only come true if he's part of an A-rank party like Thunderpike. Plus, ever since Yuka bailed on Thunderpike, they've been struggling to complete quests. So Simon says it's Yuka's responsibility to come back and make things right. Yuka listens to Simon, but he doesn't care. He and Simon used to be friends, but Simon has been treating him really badly, so Yuka doesn't want anything to do with him anymore. Yuka walks away, leaving Simon alone. Biggio was watching everything, and he looks like he's planning something bad. Back inside, the girls ask Yuka what happened with the guy outside. Yuka explains that it was Simon, the leader of his former party. As soon as Marina hears this, she gets worried because Yuka might end up rejoining Thunderpike. But as Yuka stated earlier, nothing on Earth would ever make him go back to that show of a party. That aside, they still have to report their mission success to the guild, so they all head to the reception desk. And afterward, they'll have drinks to celebrate. In this world, people can gain incredible abilities by eating the fruit of the skill tree, which decides their future. Some get lucky and become heroes like firebenders who control flames, or sword saints who master swords and become legends. Light dreams of becoming a great adventurer and hopes to get a powerful skill to help him fight monsters and protect others. But when his time comes, his skill turns out to be nutting master, something far less exciting than he imagined. On the day of the skill ceremony, Light and his best friend Lena walk together to the church, both full of excitement and curiosity about what skills they might receive. Light chats about his dreams of adventure, thinking any combat skill would be perfect for him, while Lena smiles and says she doesn't mind what skill she gets as long as she can stay close to him. She's a little nervous though because nobody knows what skill they'll get until they eat the fruit. Light, however, stays confident, telling her they'll both end up with amazing skills. As they walk through the village, the bright morning sun makes everything feel magical, and people wave and wish them luck, making the moment even more special. When they finally arrive at the church, the Holy Sister greets them warmly and starts explaining how the skill fruits work. She says that eating a fruit will grant a unique skill and open the door to a job that matches the skill, which could lead to a bright future. She even jokes about how it's a better deal than paying off student loans. Light and Lena stand before a table laden with glistening fruits, their eyes wide with excitement and a touch of apprehension. They're about to embark on a life-altering journey, a single choice that will shape their destinies forever. They understand the gravity of their decision. Each fruit holds the key to a unique and powerful skill. But there's a crucial rule, a stark warning from the Holy Sister. Only one fruit can be consumed. Eating a second will have fatal consequences, a lesson learned from countless others who succumbed to greed. Lena, her heart pounding with a mixture of excitement and trepidation, carefully selected a vibrant crimson fruit. As she took a bite, a wave of pure energy surged through her, a blinding light momentarily obscuring her vision. When she could see again, the world seemed to shimmer with newfound clarity. A tingling sensation spread through her limbs, and she felt an unfamiliar power coursing through her veins. The Holy Sister, observing Lena's transformation with a knowing smile, realized this was the fruit of the legendary Sword Saint, a skill that would undoubtedly make Lena a formidable warrior. It is incredibly rare, so she never thought she would get to see someone acquire it in person. But now that Lena is officially a Sword Saint, she is destined to become one of the greatest adventurers in the country. Light is really happy for Lena, so he congratulates her on her amazing skill. But it's his turn next, so he steps up to the altar and picks a skill fruit for himself. He knows he probably won't get something as good as the Sword Saint's skill, but he's still hoping to acquire a decent combat skill so he can fight by Lena's side. However, as he takes a bite and the skill flows into his body, he's disappointed to hear that he's just a nutting master. The sister tries to be as supportive as she can, but yeah, the only fighting Light's going to be doing is against the pests out in the field. Light is devastated that his dreams of being an adventurer have been ruined, so he asks if he can try again. But the sister was very clear about the 100% fatality rate, so she's not letting him eat another fruit. Lena tries to cheer Light up and tells him she'll stay in the village and grow fruits with him since she doesn't care what she does as long as they are together. But the Holy Sister won't stand for all this love and compassion BS. Lena's Sword Saint skill is a once-in-a-decade marvel, so she's not going to let her waste that talent by becoming a farmer. She demands that Lena become an adventurer for the sake of this country. And, in fact, she'll be taking her to the royal capital immediately so she can begin her training there. Lena, feeling powerless, allows the Holy Sister to take her away. Before she leaves, she promises Light that she will return to him someday. 3 months have passed and Light has adapted to his new life. He uses his special ability to grow giant nuts, hoping to sell them at the market. However, to his disappointment, his giant nuts are still quite small, and he receives very little money for his efforts. Light tries his best to focus on his work and push thoughts of Lena out of his mind. As he is walking back to his house, he notices a poster with some news about Lena. She's apparently been promoted to S rank in the 3 months since she left the village and is doing incredibly well for herself. Of course, he is happy for her, but hearing about how well she's doing just makes him feel like an absolute failure. Even though he knows that he doesn't have the skill to become an adventurer, Light has been training every day in hopes that he might naturally unlock a sword skill or something. He repeatedly strikes at a tree stump, and he believes that if he can split it in half with a sword, then he will be strong enough to become an adventurer by his own merit. However, hard work doesn't always pay off, so the only thing he got from all that training was some bruised wrists. He falls to the floor in defeat and begins wondering if Lena still remembers him. She said she would come back for him, but with all the fame and fortune she has acquired, he wouldn't be shocked if she had forgotten his name and face altogether. Just then, a little girl named Ayla walks up to Light and says she brought him a cup of water. She's pretty much an orphan, and the village chief didn't want to deal with her, so he kinda just left her on Light's doorstep one day. Light saw that she had nowhere to go, so he decided to take her in, and the two have been living together ever since. Ayla tells him she's done with dinner, so if he wants to, he can come inside to eat, and Light happily obliges. Light takes a bite of the delicious stew Ayla prepared. As they eat, Ayla casually asks him about his day at the farm. Light explains that his profits have increased since he started focusing on growing special skill fruits. He remembers to warn Ayla, "Don't eat any of the fruits in those boxes marked with skull emojis. They're dangerous." Ayla, unaware of the danger, confesses that she used some of those special fruits to make the stew they are currently enjoying. Light panics, frantically asking if she's sure she used those specific fruits. Ayla confirms that she did, and the room falls silent as the gravity of the situation sinks in. And from what the Holy Sister said, eating a second skill fruit is a guaranteed death sentence. All of a sudden, Light's body begins to feel hot. He feels a pain in his chest, so he believes this is how he will die. He falls to the floor, and in his final breath, he apologizes to Ayla because this is his fault for expecting her to understand the labels when she doesn't know how to read yet. However, as he lies there and awaits death, Light realizes death is taking an awfully long time. So he sits up, and to his surprise, he's perfectly fine. Ayla sees the confused expression on Light's face, so she asks him if he's fine. That's exactly why he's confused. He ate a second skill fruit, which should have been fatal. So why and how is he still alive? Just then, he gets a piercing headache and feels the power of a new skill rushing into his body. Just then, Ayla starts to feel a sharp pain in her body as well, and since she ate the stew, that must mean she's about to acquire a skill as well. All of a sudden, Ayla is able to see words floating in front of Light and reads out the info of his Nut Master skill. In addition to the ability to grow nuts, Light's skill also makes him immune to all nut poisons. Light is shocked and asks Ayla how she knows this, so she tells him she can see words floating in the air. Light realizes she must have acquired some sort of appraisal skill. Ayla keeps reading Light's information and sees that he has a second skill now, so she tells him that he possesses an ability called Sword God. The Sword God skill greatly increases Light's attack power when he's holding a sword, as well as greatly increasing his magic resistance. If what Ayla said is true, then this might mean that his dream can finally come true, so Light wants to test it out for himself. He runs outside with his sword and goes back into the forest to see if he really has a new sword skill. He raises his sword, and with a single swing, he slashes the tree stump in half, as well as that of the bigger tree behind it. So it's safe to say that as of this moment, Light is OP. The next day, he heads out into town so he can go to the guild and finally become an adventurer. He is really excited since he has always dreamed of coming here, and the first thing he spots is the notice board full of bounty quests. If they successfully complete a quest, then they'll be able to buy new equipment and tasty food. Light has come to town not just to sell his nuts, but also to test the limits of his sword god skill in a real combat situation. He believes that a successful quest will prove his worth and allow him to become an official adventurer. He tells Ayla to wait for him on a bench while he heads to the guild to accept a quest. While he's gone, Ayla decides to use her appraisal skill on the other adventurers in the guild hall. She's amazed by the variety of skills she discovers, from super strength to the ability to control the weather. However, she's also shocked by some of the useless skills she encounters, like the man with a skill that deals self-damage. Just then, she hears a commotion over by the front desk. So she looks over and finds Light in the middle of an argument with one of the adventurers in the guild. The man recognizes Light as the guy who's always selling his nuts in market, so he mocks him and says a loser like him doesn't belong in the guild. But Light completely ignores him and just tells Ayla that they can leave now. The guy is offended that Light would dare to ignore him, so his completely normal reaction is to attack Light with his sword. Light's sword god skill also improves his reflexes, so he was easily able to block the attack. But the guy had no idea Light could do that, so he fully intended to catch a murder charge today. The guy's friends see that Light is capable of defending himself, so they convince Jan to just walk away because this isn't a fight he can win. Jan tries to play off his outburst and claims he never really intended to hurt Light, so he and his friends leave the guild to go on their first mission. And shortly after, Light and Ayla leave as well. Since Light has gotten the quest for them, they head out into the rocky plains, and Light is really excited since he might finally get to see a monster in person. But this place is dangerous, so he tells Ayla to stay close to him. They soon spot their target, and it's that slime monster over in the distance, so Light prepares himself to fight it. He cautiously approaches in an attempt to sneak up on it, but the slime notices him anyway, so Light goes for a full frontal assault instead. He is a lot stronger than he used to be, so when he charges at the slime, he slices it in half and accidentally splits the ground in the process. He's happy that his skill really is useful in battle, but he's going to have to work on his power management so he doesn't cause any more collateral damage. Ayla congratulates Light on his first successful quest, but to complete the quest, they need to cut the slime up and bring the parts back to the guild so they can exchange it for money. Ayla says she feels kinda bad about cutting the slime's body up, but Light reminds her that they'll earn enough money for pizza if they sell the slime parts. So Ayla throws her morals out the window and begins dissecting the slime. Just then, they hear someone yelling on the other side of the plains, so they rush over and find Jan and his party being attacked by a huge ogre. They intentionally picked an easy quest so they could just kill a slime and go home, but they never expected to run into an ogre. The ogre swings at them, and they all jump out of the way. But even if they manage to dodge that first attack, they stand no chance of winning against that thing. Light calls over to them to ask if they are alright, and as soon as Jan spots him, he comes up with a plan to escape. He and his friends start running straight at Light, and Light is a bit confused by what they are doing. Then they run past him, and he realizes they are trying to use him as bait so they can flee. The air crackled with anticipation as the ogre charged, its massive mace raised high. This was it, the moment of truth. Light braced himself, a thrill coursing through him. He knew this was a dangerous gamble. The Holy Sister had warned him repeatedly that his sword god skill only enhanced his offense, leaving his defense completely vulnerable. A single hit from the ogre could be fatal. But the thought of becoming the world's greatest adventurer, of proving himself worthy, fueled his resolve. He wouldn't back down. This was his chance to test the limits of his newfound power, to see if he truly had what it takes to become a legend. He has finally gotten used to his body's new strength, so Light jumps into the air, and as the ogre tries to strike him, he slashes its mace in half. No matter what it takes, he will make sure he catches up to Lena so the two of them can be together again. So in one swift motion, he brings his sword down and cuts the ogre cleanly in half, all while Jan and his friends watch from a nearby hill. A little while later, Light returns to the guild to exchange his items for money, but the receptionist finds it hard to believe that he managed to defeat an ogre all by himself. As proof, Light shows her the ogre horn he brought back, and on top of that, Jan's friends say they saw the whole thing, so they can guarantee that Light is telling the truth. The receptionist believes him, so she asks him to wait a minute so she can get his reward. And in the meantime, Jan's friends thank Light again for saving them. Just then, a crowd forms at the front of the guild, so Light asks if something happened, and Jan informs him that the S-rank party has just returned. This happens to be the S-rank party that Lena joined, and this is the first time he has seen her in the last 3 months. So Light goes up to her and tries to say hello, but in response, Lena says, "I've never met this man before in my life." Light is devastated and can't believe Lena actually forgot about him after only 3 months, so he's just standing there with his mouth wide open. Ayla has no idea what's wrong, so she tries to cheer him up and suggests they should go get some pizza together. Light is able to take Ayla to get some pizza, but he's still acting depressed, so Ayla threatens to eat all the pizza if he doesn't snap out of it soon. Light spent a lot of money on this pizza, so even if he's upset about Lena, there's no way he's letting it go to waste. However, he ate so fast that he ended up choking. But luckily, someone hands him a glass of water to wash it down. He looks up to thank the helpful stranger, but to his surprise, the stranger turns out to be Lena. He's about to yell her name, but Lena covers his mouth and tells him to be quiet, otherwise, Grouse is going to hear them. She sits down at the table, and Ayla introduces herself, since this is the first time she's actually met Lena. Lena is about to ask how Light got a kit in just 3 months, but before that, Light asks her what she's doing here. To be honest, Lena was wondering the same thing about Light because she never expected to see him at the guild. So Light proudly explains that he and Ayla became adventurers. He then explains what happened with the whole skill fruit incident, allowing him to acquire a second skill, and Lena seems genuinely happy for him since this means he can finally achieve his dream. Light then asks Lena how her time with the S-rank party, Sacred, has been so far. But from Lena's expression, it doesn't seem like it's been much fun. She's basically just being forced to fight with a bunch of random people that the Holy Sisters selected. The pay is great, but the atmosphere is more toxic than a Call of Duty lobby, so she advises Light to stay away from Sacred if he wants to enjoy his time as an adventurer. Light still doesn't understand what's so bad about Sacred since he has heard so many good things about them. But Lena recalls an incident from 2 months ago when their party was up against a giant serpent. Serpents are weak to fire, so Grouse ordered the mage to blast the serpent. However, the mage went overboard and also set fire to a nearby farm. But when Lena tried to point it out so they could stop the fire, Grouse couldn't care less about destroying a random nobody's farm. Their job was to kill the serpent, and they killed the serpent, so there's no need to concern themselves with pointless things like collateral damage as long as the job gets done. She tried explaining the situation to the Holy Sister as well, but she cared about it even less than Grouse did. She doesn't care how much property is destroyed or how many peasants are killed as long as history remembers them as heroes. She doesn't tell Light about the twisted views of her party, but Light can tell that she's unhappy with it, so he invites her to join him and Ayla if she wants. However, as much as Lena would love that, there are circumstances that prevent her from quitting Sacred. She tells Light she's fine, but he can clearly see her crying, so he knows something must be wrong. However, Lena doesn't want to drag him into her mess, so she leaves the table a little while later. Light goes to the front desk to pick up his reward for killing the ogre, and he is given 10,000 gold pieces, which is more money than he has ever even seen. However, he isn't excited at all. Despite it, he is really worried about Lena, but he can't help her unless he knows what Sacred is forcing her to do, and she won't tell him directly. Since that's the case, Ayla says he can just ask the party leader, Grouse, personally, since the door to his lounge is wide open. Inside the lounge, Grouse is currently sitting with 2 ladies and telling them stories about his legendary battles. For instance, he tells them about his most recent battle where he and his party were hunting an evil grizzly, and to take care of it, a torsa bear with a massive inferno before Grouse delivered the finishing blow. Just then, the receptionist comes in because she has something to talk to Grouse about regarding his recent mission. The people from the village where he found that evil grizzly have lodged a complaint against him, saying that the fire attack that Sacred used caused their reservoir to dry up completely, so now they have no water. Grouse immediately dismisses the complaint and makes up an excuse, saying that a little collateral damage is inevitable when dealing with such powerful monsters. But secretly, he actually enjoys causing problems for the weaklings because he thinks they are beneath him. Light overhears the whole conversation, and he is enraged by what he hears because he knows Lena would never disregard the problems of regular people like that. He demands that Grouse let Lena leave Sacred because she's clearly suffering. But Grouse doesn't take him seriously and just calls security over to have Light removed from the lounge. Ayla rushes over to Light's side to ask if he's alright, and Light is fine. But the other adventurers warn him that it's a bad idea to antagonize Grouse because he may be a jerk, but injuring him will get you on the Holy Sister's bad side. and if she's got a grudge against you, then it's safe to say that your adventuring career is over. Later the next day, all the members of Sacred meet up in the lounge, and they are busy basking in their own greatness. But Lena thinks back to what Light told her about quitting Sacred. It was making her so upset. So she finally works up the courage and declares to everyone that she wants to live by her moral code as an adventurer, which is why she is leaving Sacred effective immediately. She then starts walking towards the exit, but before she could leave, Grouse dashes in front of her and threatens to kill her for daring to defy him. Lena is about to draw her sword to defend herself, but she realizes that even with her sword saint skill, it would still be impossible for her to defeat Grouse in one-on-one combat, so she's forced to submit and takes her hand off her blade. Grouse then backhands her to the floor and begins a half-hearted speech about how she should persevere for the sake of all the people their party will save in the future, and she's going to have to keep persevering until the day she dies in battle. That same day, the Sacred party is set to leave the town, and Lena has resigned herself to a life of being forced to work under Grouse. However, as they are leaving town, their path is blocked by Light. Grouse asks what Light is standing in their way, so Light declares that he is here to get his friend. He tells Lena that he and Ayla were planning to go hunt some monsters, and they would love to have her with them. After all, they made a promise to one another that they would become adventurers together, and he intends to keep that promise. Lena remembers the promise, and she would love to go with Light, but she doesn't have the strength to go against Grouse, so she asks Light to just leave her alone before he gets hurt. Since Lena has rejected Light's offer, Grouse tries to get him to go away, but Light hasn't given up yet. Instead, he declares that he wants to have a duel with Grouse for Lena's freedom. Grouse initially rejects the duel since he has no reason to fight a random nobody, but then Light taunts him by asking if he is scared of losing to a nobody. And Grouse couldn't let such public disrespect slide, so he ends up agreeing to Light's duel and plans to make an example out of him. But he sets a stipulation that when Light loses, he will be banned from the Adventurers Guild forever, and he will never set foot in the city again. Light agrees to those terms, but Lena tries to convince him to back out since she doesn't think he can win against Grouse in a sword fight. Grouse draws his sword and prepares to attack, but before he does, Ayla scans him and warns Light that Grouse possesses the Godspeed skill. This ability allows him to close the distance with his opponent almost instantly, so he needs to be careful about that. Light readies his sword as well, but to keep things fair, he announces that his skills are Nutmaster and Sword God. However, Grouse doesn't believe him since there's no way anyone could possibly have two skills. Grouse then closes the distance instantly to attack, and Light could barely see the attack coming, but he does manage to block it. Grouse then repeatedly strikes at Light, and Light is forced into a defensive position because he can't keep up with all of Grouse's attacks. He eventually creates some distance, but that distance is short-lived because Grouse appears behind him and knees him in the side. No matter where Grouse is on the battlefield, as long as it is within range, Grouse can appear there in an instant, so there are no safe spaces for Light. Light admits that Grouse is insanely tough, but he refuses to give up, so he charges into attack. Unfortunately, Grouse dodges just before his attack hits, and while Light is off balance, he destroys his sword. With Light's sword destroyed, this battle is pretty much over anyway, but Grouse is feeling generous today, so he tells Lena that he will spare Light if she swears her undying loyalty to him for the rest of her life. However, Light tells Lena that she doesn't have to worry because he will find a way to win this match. Light may have been losing up till now, but Lena chooses to put her faith in him and trusts that he can win this battle no matter what. Grouse is getting sick of all this disrespect, so he plans to kill Light with his next attack. Light still doesn't have a sword though, so he looks around for a replacement and decides to borrow a broom from one of the spectators. Grouse thinks Light is mocking him, and he's kind of right since Light could have easily borrowed Lena's sword instead. Still, Light has full confidence that he can defeat Grouse with this broomstick. So he begins envisioning it as a sword and prepares for Grouse's attacks. So far he has been falling behind because he keeps looking at Grouse's movements, but his sword god skill gives him incredible reflexes, so this time he's just going to go with the flow and attack when the time is right. Thanks to Light's changing strategy, his body is able to react the second Grouse gets within range, so he uses the broom to smack his face so hard that he gets sent flying into a brick wall. Grouse collapses to the ground, so Light is officially the winner of their duel. And just to make the point clear, Light turns to the other members of Sacred and tells them that if they come after Lena again, then they will have to deal with him. He then turns to Lena and tells her that she's finally free. So once again, he invites her to join his party, and Lena happily accepts. The week has passed since Light's duel with Grouse, and not much has changed since he's still growing his nuts. But now he has Lena by his side, so he's much happier. Lena makes lunch for everyone, and while they eat, she asks Light about the injuries he sustained while fighting Grouse. Light is feeling great now and can finally join Lena out on a mission, so this would normally be his dream come true. But there is still one problem. Every so often, Lena gets a visitor sent by the Holy Sister. And for the past week, he's been trying to get Lena to come to meet with her so they can discuss her decision to leave Sacred. But Lena says there's nothing to discuss because there's nothing that can make her change her mind. Unfortunately, since they've earned the scorn of the Holy Sister, they are now being targeted, and as such, when they go to the guild to pick out a quest, they're only offered the worst jobs available, like killing sewer rats. These jobs pay very little, so finances are going to be tough, but Lena doesn't seem upset since this allows her to actually help people, like helping rebuild destroyed homes, clearing out the sewers, or finding a missing cat. By the end of the day, they only made 100 coins, that's barely enough for 3 pizzas, but even if their pay is low, Lena is much happier now that she gets to really make people happy, and Light is having more fun than ever before. Meanwhile, over in the Holy Sisters Cathedral, she informs her assistant that she intends to give Lena's new party a real job soon, but this one is S rank, so it's one of the most difficult jobs out there, and she may or may not be hoping that Light is killed in the process. The next day, Light and the others travel out to the Montes Valley to complete their latest quest. He asks Lena if this is the right place, and according to the map she's holding, they should be arriving at the mansion soon. Suddenly, Light's horse nearly bucks him off. They've arrived at the mansion, and there's no way the horse can get down there. Earlier that day, they found the guild receptionist waiting. She is glad that Lena's party is here and asks that they accept the quest. It all started when an adventuring party that had been headed to the northern Montes Valley suddenly disappeared while on a quest, and every time they sent adventurers out to investigate, they ended up disappearing as well. What's even more concerning is the fact that A and B rank adventurers have gone missing in that valley, so whatever is causing it must be incredibly strong. The receptionist hands the group a list of the adventurers who had gone missing, and to Lena's horror, she knows these guys. They were the people who taught her everything she knew about adventuring when she was first starting out, so she's really worried about their safety. The only clue they have is the fact that all the adventurers that went missing first stopped at the home of the former Count of Montes. Count Montes was a legendary adventurer who struck it rich and decided to settle down in Montes Valley. While nobody knows exactly what skills he had, his fortune spoke for itself. Sadly, the Count passed away over 30 years ago, leaving his grand mansion to crumble into ruins. Lena's not exactly thrilled about it. If even A and B rank adventurers vanish without a trace, what chance do they stand? But Light? Oh, he's pumped. Visiting Montes Valley has been on his bucket list for ages. Ayla's also on board because this quest comes with a hefty reward, and more money means more pizza for her. The receptionist finally notices Ayla tagging along and gives Light a skeptical look. "You're really taking her with you?" she asks. Light confidently explains that Ayla's a top-tier appraiser, so she's basically essential for the team. That doesn't stop the receptionist from raising an eyebrow. Kids Ayla's age aren't supposed to have skills yet. Light had mentioned that Ayla ate a skill fruit once. She didn't die, so all good, right? And just like that, they set off from Montes Valley. Now back to the present. The crew is carefully climbing down a steep mountainside. Light reminds Ayla to watch her step. It's a long way down. As they approach the mansion, Light can't help but gawk at its sheer size. How could anyone afford such a massive place just by adventuring? Lena isn't surprised though and points out that in just a few months of adventuring, she's already saved enough to buy a house. Light looks at her, impressed and maybe a little envious. Light always wanted a massive house someday to grow his nuts and train to his heart's content. Hearing this, Ayla's eyes lit up. She wanted to build a candy house and declared with pure excitement. But apparently, all that sugar-fueled enthusiasm knocked her common sense right out the window. She started jumping up and down on the ledge. It crumbled beneath her feet, and Ayla started free-falling like a rock. Thankfully, Lights caught her hand just in time. With the force of the grab threw off his balance, and over the edge he went too. Lena rushed to pull them back and got dragged down with them. And just like that, the whole squad was plummeting toward doom. As they tumbled, Light's brain worked overtime. He whipped out his sword mid-fall. With a swift slash through the air, he created enough wind pressure to slow them down. It was a pretty cool move, and it worked. They landed in one piece, but before they could celebrate their survival, reality hit them hard. The trio quickly realized they weren't alone. They were surrounded. Light wasn't phased and charged at the nearest creature, cutting it clean in half. While Light marveled at his effortless takedown, Lena and Ayla were already connecting the dots. These weren't ordinary monsters. Light took a moment to actually look at what or who he'd just defeated. His heart sank as realization dawned. The monsters surrounding them were adventurers. Ayla's appraisal skill kicks in, and her discovery sends chills through the group. The adventurers weren't just killed. They were bitten and turned into undead. Worse yet, these undead retain all the skills they had when they were alive. She tells them to be very careful, as these guys are just as dangerous as they were in life. Light finds himself in a moral tug-of-war. The excitement he felt about battling monsters evaporates as he realizes these creatures were once adventurers like him. He doesn't notice one of the undead lunging at him until it's almost too late. Thankfully, Lena intervenes just in time, slicing the attacker clean in half. Lena gets it. Fighting former comrades isn't easy. But she reminds Light of their responsibility as adventurers. The comrades always come before any other creatures or undead. Light finally pushes his hesitation aside, and the group decides to fall back into the mansion, hoping to find survivors. However, their hope is crushed. More undead are waiting inside. Lena charges ahead, cutting through the horde with precision. Light can't help but be impressed by her tactical prowess. She adjusts her attack style on the fly. Human-like undead require a stab to the heart, while skeletal ones need their spines severed. Her mastery is clear, even though her Sword Saint skill isn't as powerful as Light's Sword God ability. Light dives into the fray, cutting through the undead monsters with precision, but his focus on the fight blinds him to a critical mistake. He's left Ayla unprotected. Just as an undead sneaks up behind her, ready to strike, Lena swoops in like a hero. As the undead disintegrates, Lena checks on Ayla, who bursts into praise. Calling her totally cool, Lena blushes at the compliment but reminds herself to stay grounded. Overconfidence can be deadly. Light, however, is shaken. His slip-up could have cost Ayla her life, and he vows to stay sharp from now on. With the undead on this floor defeated, Lena suggests moving to the second floor, but Light pauses, a nagging thought creeping into his mind. They were told 18 adventurers went missing here, yet they've already taken down far more than 18 undead. The numbers don't add up. As they climb the staircase, Light spots a portrait of Count Montes. There's something eerie about it. Somewhere in the castle, a girl's voice echoes, a chilling sing-song tone as she muses about the fun ways she could kill him. Suddenly, an undead lunges at them from the shadows, a perfectly timed ambush. Light reacts instantly, slicing its head clean off before it can harm anyone. But it's clear this was no random attack. The undead on this floor are using strategy, setting traps and ambushes. Light asks Ayla to gather more intel. Ayla obeys and soon discovers that the undead they've been fighting are controlled by someone giving them direct orders. As Light looks closer, he spots faint threads extending from the undead. Ayla scans the threads and determines they're conduits for magic power, connecting the undead to their master. Following the threads, the trio winds through the eerie mansion until they reach a massive door where all the threads converge. Light tells Lena and Ayla to stay sharp and pushes the door open, revealing an empty ballroom. Suddenly, a girl materializes in the room. Light's initial relief at seeing a living person is short-lived. Her expression is far from friendly. Ayla uncovers that the girl, Dratina, possesses necromancy. This rare and sinister skill allows her to control the dead and use their unique abilities as her own. Dratina, annoyed by Ayla's appraisal skill, considers taking her out first. But Light tries to reason with her, but Dratina reveals that she's here for one purpose, to kill Light. This shocks Light as he's never met her before. Why would she have such a grudge against him? Dratina coolly explains that she's just following orders. She vaguely hints that it might involve a certain holy sister. All the missing adventurers were pawns in her plan to lure Light to this very spot. Dratina then launches her attack. Light and Lena quickly jump into action, cutting down waves of undead with ease. But Dratina is cunning. She separates Lena from Light, forcing her to face a nightmare of her own, the undead forms of her former mentors, Borg and Sheila. The sight freezes Lena in place. She struggles to accept that her mentors died here and have been turned into monsters. Ayla shouts a warning just in time, snapping Lena out of her shock. These two are far more dangerous than the others, Ayla explains. Borg's claw-like enhancements give him unmatched speed and power, while Sheila's ability to create mirror images makes her nearly impossible to pin down. However, Drattina isn't blind to Ayla's helpful little interventions and sends one of her undead minions straight for Ayla. Luckily, Light leaps in, scoops up Ayla like a hero in a storybook, and blocks the attack. Still, Drattina keeps targeting Ayla whenever Light looks the other way. Light is barely holding it together, scrambling to block every threat. Meanwhile, Lena has her own emotional crisis. It's heartbreaking, but Lena knows there's no choice. Gathering all her courage, Lena cuts the threads controlling her mentors. Their spirits appeared to her saying that it's okay and that she's doing what's necessary. With tears streaming down her face, Lena delivers the final blow, freeing them from their torment. While Lena finds closure, Light starts piecing together something weird. There are way too many undead attacking them. He asks Ayla to check if Drattina can actually create undead. Turns out she can't. She can only control the ones that already exist. Aha, there's a secret here, and Light is determined to uncover it. Drattina, realizing they're onto her, shifts gears and targets Ayla directly. But Light isn't about to let her hurt his teammate. He takes down every undead sent her way and then hoists Ayla onto his back. This way he can fight at full strength without worrying about her safety. A girl has entered the room and boldly announces that she is the one wing of Black Swan, the elite force of darkness. She then tells them that her name is Drattina. At this, Underwood pulls out his sword and gets ready to fight her. On the other hand, Floria is conflicted. She doesn't want to harm her loved ones. But right now, they are not in their senses and they can harm innocent people. That's why Floria decides to fight with them and send them off from this world with her own hand. Floria feels heartbroken, but she doesn't have any other option. That's why she pulls out her sword and starts fighting them. Whereas Underwood is having difficulty fighting with Drattina. To make matters worse, the zombies are also charging towards him. Hence, Underwood hurriedly makes a plan and tells Ayla to hold him tight. After that, he tells Ayla to use her powers to find out why the undead people keep appearing. Hence, the girl uses her appraisal skill to scan the people and figures out that they are using the summon skill. At this moment, Underwood notices the Count of Montes among the undead people. Hence, he realizes that the man has also turned into an undead. On the other hand, Drattina becomes worried at the fact that Underwood and Ayla are about to figure out the trick. At this moment, Underwood notices a strange figure on the balcony. Hence, he tells Ayla about it. Surprisingly, the man is like a demon god. Ayla figures out that the man is a soul reaper. It appears he is a very dangerous monster that turns living people into the undead. So if anyone touches his scythe or sludge, they'll turn into an undead. Ayla and the boy become tense after learning this information. To make matters worse, the soul reaper throws his scythe towards them. Fortunately, Underwood jumps down at the last second and saves both of their lives. Ayla realizes that Drattina is controlling the soul reaper and the undead it created. At this, Drattina informs them that it was actually the Count who summoned the soul reaper. Sadly, the man himself turned into an undead by the very monster he summoned. Unfortunately, all the average adventurers became victims of this soul reaper when they entered this place. Apparently, this monster feeds on these adventurers, and that's why they all became the undead. Underwood is wondering why an adventurer as successful as the Count would summon a monster like this. At this, Drattina mocks him for his naivety and asks him if he knows what taboo skills are. She then explains that taboo skills are the ones that make others ostracize and hate you for simply possessing one. Apparently, the Count's summon skill is one of them. At first, people praised him as a hero with a powerful skill. But with time, people and the government started fearing after wondering what if the Count had a change of heart and turned that terrifying immense power against the people. That's why they began to distance themselves from him. In the end, the Count was even falsely accused of treason. That's why he fled from that miserable place. However, the government kept sending the assassins to kill the Count. Most recently, a party of assassins was sent under the guise of conducting a monster density survey. Seems like the Count summoned this monster in order to drive the intruders off. The man wanted to wipe them all together, and guess what? His wish came true, as all the assassins were wiped off at the manor of the former Count of Montes. Drattina is back in her fighting mood. Hence, she evilly states that if she uses her necromancer skill to control a summon user, she can endlessly play with her marionettes. Underwood feels conflicted after hearing the Count's story. He feels that Fruit Master could be used to acquire an infinite number of skills. Thus, the boy is wondering if the world would celebrate an unusual skill like that. Underwood fears that he can someday be ostracized and follow the same path as the Count. At this moment, Ayla calls him and brings him out of his thoughts. The boy realizes that right now he should focus on protecting Ayla and fighting with these demons. Hence, the boy tells Ayla that he has noticed that Dratina is using necromancy to designate targets and attack methods. So that means the monsters under her control can only repeat the same attack until they receive new instructions. Thus, the boy makes a plan and gets straight to the action mode. He uses his sword god style, Surge Blade, to distract Dratina. In the meantime, Floria comes there and uses this chance to kill the Soul Reaper. Funnily, Dratina is horrified by these turns of events. On the other hand, Underwood kills the Count. However, before dying, the Count tells the boy that he will also hate the skills like him. At this, Underwood vows that he will not end up like Count. Suddenly, a purple light starts coming from Dratina's side. It appears she is summoning a more dangerous monster. After a moment, a dangerous monster comes out of a portal, and Ayla informs them that this monster is a wicked dragon. Funnily, the dragon hits Dratina and throws her on the ground. Dude misunderstood the mission. He is attacking his own master. Floria informs the boy and Ayla that wicked dragons are targets of the highest level hunts that not even rank S adventurers attempt. At this, Underwood suggests that they all can combine their skills to kill it. However, Ayla hurriedly tells him that they can't do this because the wicked dragon is resistant to slashing attacks. Dragon's tough scales will block their sword attacks. The boy doesn't listen to her and attacks the dragon with his sword. However, his sword gets broken when it touches the dragon. Hence, the boy realizes that Ayla is right. They can't attack the dragon with their swords. On the other hand, a masked man with purple hair comes there and takes Dratina from there. Meanwhile, Ayla takes out a fruit skill and tells her friends that they can use this to fight with the dragon. However, Floria doesn't like this idea. Hence, she is stopping the boy from eating the fruit. But the boy tells her that he is immune to the fruit's poison, so he should be able to eat as many fruit skills as he wants. At this, Floria reminds him that he can also get some bad skills. Thus, Underwood reminds them that they don't have another option, so he will eat the fruit skill. Hence, he then ate the fruit, and from it, he got the bug resistance skill. Funnily, the skill is useless for them. Hence, he eats another 2 fruits at a time. Meanwhile, Floria is fighting with the wicked dragon. This time, Underwood gets cat skill, which is useless for him. The other skill he gets is weapon durability boost. This skill makes his weapon break less often. Underwood starts feeling the side effects of the fruit skills. Hence, he realizes that if the next fruit does not come out with a good skill, then it will be bad news for them because he won't be able to move his body. Thus, he squished the fruit in his hand, and luckily, this time he got Sleep Pixie. The boy has a small pixie in his hand, and apparently, any creature that inhales those scales is put to sleep. Hence, the boy throws the pixie towards the dragon. The pixie is trying to put the dragon to sleep, but the dragon is trying hard to stay awake. Hence, the boy thinks of a new plan to put the dragon to sleep. Thus, he takes his broken sword and activates his sword god while welding it. Underwood breaks the roof with his sword and then jumps on the rubber to reach the dragon. Fortunately, his plan is successful as he is standing on the nose of the dragon. Thus, from this close, he activates the pixie's power and puts the dragon to sleep. Floria then noticed a strange thing on the floor, hence she picks it up. After that, they all come out of the place. After some time, they come back to the town. But at the gate of the town, Underwood falls down from the horse as he is super exhausted. On the other hand, the masked man has brought Dratina to a new place. There is a woman dressed like a nun standing there. She asks the man about the fruit master, Underwood. Hence, the man tells the woman that the boy poses no threat to them. It appears this woman is Black Swan. She is not happy that Underwood has this strong power, which is the power of the a priori. Thus, she feels that the boy must possess some other special power. Hence, she is worried that the time is near when he will meet the mystery person. It is another ordinary yet calm day at Ayla's. Lena is taking a relaxing bath while little Ayla is working on the greens. The little girl also helps out with the ingredients and dishes in the kitchen too. Lena is proud of Ayla for doing so well without Light accommodating her. These two are acting like the dude has passed away when he's just being forced to chill in his room alone. Speaking of the devil, Light barges in the kitchen to grab a glass of water. Lena and Ayla quickly grab Light and rush to his room. This dude had eaten 4 skill fruits at once, and according to these two, he'd die if he spent 1 more second in the kitchen consciously. Even though Light has been sleeping for 2 days straight, Lena wants him to stay in his room until he is completely fine. So she makes him a comforting breakfast and tells him to sleep while she visits the Adventurers Guild with Ayla. Apparently, the guild wants her to dissect everything about Wicked Dragon's appearance. Light is dying to go with them, but the girls won't let him move. Lena and Ayla finally arrive at the guild, but they're facing an issue there. Apparently, the guild is really busy, and these two will have to wait for 2 hours before entering the conference room. Moreover, the receptionist restricts Ayla from joining the guild members because she's not registered as an adventurer yet. Lena decides to take care of it by quickly getting her registered there. As soon as Ayla begins to fill the guild form, other adventurers in the back start commenting on her being a kid. All of this was very much audible to Ayla, and she was beginning to feel insecure about herself. Lena will never let that happen, so she does her best to uplift the little one. Buying her cool adventurer equipment seems like the best idea, so she does just that. While the girlies shop in the town, Light dreads rotting in bed, something I would do all day without complaining. His boredom is valid because Ayla and Lena are out there eating ice cream and going through several cute shops. However, there is this one shady shop that Ayla shows interest in. Lena is hesitant to visit the place, but Ayla ends up dragging her there somehow. The little girl starts scanning the rocks lying there and finds an expensive diamond through her appraisal skills. Despite the shopkeeper's complete disregard for the rock, Lena believes in Ayla's abilities and buys it for a pretty good price. The two then go on a shopping rampage and use the diamond as a billionaire's credit card. Lena brings Ayla to a dressmaker, and the designer lady instantly picks the wrong customer. Lena is being forced to play dress-up when the actual character needing a glow-up is Ayla. After having to try on sweet and exotic dresses, Lena finally speaks up and asks the designer lady to show a piece for Ayla. So the lady pulls out a very adorable dress for the girl, but it was not up to Ayla's taste. Ayla is hesitant to speak her mind, and Lena notices. Encouraging Ayla to become more vocal about her likes, Lena reminds her that she is a very important part of Luxuria. That gives Ayla all the confidence she needed, and she finally tells the designer to turn her into a cool adventurer. And that's how these two spend the spare 2 hours before entering the conference room. Ayla looks like an actual adventurer now too, and is ready to assist Lena. Light is counting his days in a jail room, and Sleep Pixie is getting tired of his tactics. The fairy wants him to sleep, but he just won't stop being a stupid boy. In the end, she ends up having to drag the dude into his bed. Unfortunately for her, Light has a praise kink and does not want Lena and Ayla to collect all the praises at the guild. Meanwhile, Lena is entering the conference room with a thorough plan in mind. She is there to read through the higher-ups' expressions because she firmly believes that Dratina was sent out to kill her team by them. After a complete security check, Ayla and Lena are allowed into the room. Lena's arrival is announced to the members of the 4 bureaus. Ayla feels lost, so the receptionist explains the 4 bureaus to her, which are basically 4 major posts within the guild. According to her, the head of each bureau is attending the conference, making it a highly influential meeting. Then, all 4 bureau heads are introduced. Flower Hat manages the investigation bureau, Tigerbeard is the head of security, Gravekeeper keeps finance in check, and the head of inspection, Holy Sister, is introduced at the very last. Lena and Holy Sister exchange greetings, and the conference finally begins. It begins with Holy Sister pretending to care about Lena's safety, which gets on the adventurer's nerves. Lena is secretly very tempted to see the unholy sister's reactions to her stimulants, whereas Ayla is taking interest in every person present in the conference room. The receptionist guides her through everything and explains how influential of a person Holy Sister is to Ayla. Hearing that makes the little one greatly curious about Holy Sister's skills, so she tries to take a look. Shockingly enough, Ayla fails to find anything, and the briefing begins shortly as well. Before giving out the major information, Lena jumps right into her plan and brings up Dratina of Black Swan. She addresses all 4 heads and starts questioning them about her potential killer. Although all 4 of them refuse to recognize Dratina, Holy Sister's behavior towards this investigation seems strange to Lena. She quickly dodges the question and starts going into detail about the wicked dragon. Flower Hat had been looking for the dragon, but it can't be located anywhere near the manor. She mentions needing a part of the dragon's body to track its magic, which puts a smirk on Lena's face. Lena instantly reveals a black object to the heads. Ayla takes a quick scan of it, and the object seems to belong to the wicked dragon. Flower Hat jumps off of her seat in an instant and starts investigating the body part excitingly. Lena takes the importance of the black object into account and demands all records related to Dratina be shown to her in its exchange. Her fearlessness shocks the participants, but the condition does sound viable to them. After hearing the attendees out, Holy Sister grants Lena the permission to look at Dratina's records. though there's no guarantee that she will find anything useful in it. As the story proceeds, Flower Hat begins investigating the dragon's body part using her skill, Scholar's Eye. Ayla was mesmerized by her technique, and she kept observing her keenly. The head of Investigation Bureau is finally getting somewhere with her cliché spells. She reveals that a girl named Dratina Bellberry had received a skill fruit 12 years ago and unlocked necromancy. Lena asks for the appraising officer, who turns out to be Holy Sister. The girl thought she had finally gotten something on the woman, but Holy Sister very blatantly denies knowing Dratina. Although it's not much, Lena is happy to finally have a lead. But all her hopes are later shattered when Holy Sister announces the destruction of all party records of Luxuria. That is because she had received a complaint from Grouse against Lena's party member Light. Apparently, Light had illegally attacked Grouse, and this revelation caused a commotion in the conference room. To spice things up a little, Light steps into the room himself to receive his part of praise. This airhead has no clue that the whole group sitting there is talking shit about him. Holy Sister breaks the bad news to him as well, which pisses him off and makes him question her authority. The receptionist explains Holy Sister's position to Light, but it doesn't affect him. He wants to keep his adventurer badge as a part of Luxuria. As he's talking, Holy Sister looks into his eyes, and this exchange ignites a magic, and for some strange reason, the woman decides to spare Light if his party manages to hunt an S-ranked monster. Lena finds this sudden change unsettling and wants Light to make his decision thoughtfully. Unfortunately, Light has already made up his mind, and he's well aware of Holy Sister's tactics as well. Light wants to take on this challenge to leave his mark on history and prove Holy Sister wrong. This aspiration relieves Lena as Light mentally prepares himself for the battlefield. The officials later provide all the important information about the S-rank monster to Light. Lena can feel the tension in the air and warns her friend to bear Holy Sister's unholy intentions in his mind. On the other hand, Ayla has been trying to appraise Holy Sister's skills, but to no avail. This new information unsettles Lena more, and she tries to read through the situation. Later, Light is fined 1,000 gold by Gravekeeper for bringing a weapon inside the conference room. To save his payment, Light breaks the sword to diminish its significance, only to get fined 5,000 gold for breaking a guild blade. To add to his misery, the guild won't provide him with any sword, so he decides to get one himself. The receptionist advises him to order a sword from a blacksmith for his own good. Thanks to his great fighting skills, Light still has hope in finding better weapons, and he aims to defeat the wicked dragon with them. Light is all set to get his sword made at the workshop, and Lena wants to visit Athena in the meantime. She wants to use these few days to dig deeper into Dratina's existence. After asking Ayla to look after Light, Lena heads to make bigger discoveries on her opponent Dratina.